for us at IDS, we usually celebrate our teachers, especially the ones who have done well, and all of them do well anyway. And we say that in the academia, you don't retire. You only move the space from the IDS space of 8 to 5, but you still move to another space where we still need your brain. So I think that's the reason why most likely Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui has seen it important that after celebrating her academic life at the IDS, she also brings it to this other space where she has been engaging with the citizens. So that said, I have celebrated a few of the lecturers that have moved from the space of IDS to other spaces. We celebrated the academic life of Professor Charles Odidi Okidi at the IDS. I celebrated the academic life of Professor Dorothy McCormick. I think most of you should be able to know her because they used to engage in nearly the same academic discipline with Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui. We've celebrated the life of Professor Njuguna Ngede, who was actually my supervisor at the Institute for Development Studies. And after supervising me, he actually went ahead and gave me a job at one of the oldest think tanks in Kenya. Although it ceased to exist, it was called IPA, the Institute of Policy Analysis and Research. And I loved the way Professor Njuguna Ngede took me to IPA. And I've seen the kind of relationship Professor Njeri Kinyanjui has with some of our students. And I think it is more or less the same kind of relationship that we had with my professor, Njuguna Ngede. He just gave me a call in the evening and told me, Ponge, I taught you how to think. Can you think? And I told him, yes, I can think, Prof. If you can think, can you come to the Norfolk Towers tomorrow? And I moved to the Norfolk Towers the following day, and I found Professor Ngede there, and he told me that he wanted me to think for their think tank, the Institute of Policy Analysis and Research. And just like that, I got my first ever 6-digit salary from being a good student of Professor Njuguna Ngede to now someone working for IPA. And I share the joy with the students of Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui. So my presentation is titled Praying for Progress, the Political Economy of Faith-Based Development in Africa. And I found this topic to be appropriate given that the way Professor Njeri Kinyanjui has demonstrated from the IDS to the next place that she valued most, which is the church, right? So when we say praying for progress, right, it is like we are dreaming, right? And when you are dreaming, all dreams are valid. But a dream can only be valid if you can at least wake up from your bed and try to make the dream real. So I can say that religion remains one of the most influential social institutions in Africa. And my presentation and ultimate paper tries to examine how faith-based organizations contribute to development while also navigating issues of power, politics, and economic realities. And the discussion tries to adopt a political economy and the colonial perspective rather than just viewing religion solely through spirituality or charity. Right? So, Is it working or not working? Not working? We can't share from here?
I thought that guy had fixed it for you. Can you share the slide from that end? Because, Doc, you have 5 minutes left.
Eh?
You have 5 minutes left.
Okay, so religion is not a peripheral issue in Africa. It is embedded in everyday life because we have churches, mosques, and religious networks which often reach communities even before the government or the NGOs. Unfortunately, mainstream development studies have historically underestimated religious developmental significance, which my paper will try to place at the center. Religion, we should place religion at the center of development discussions. So, if we look at the political economy of faith-based organizations, this draws us back to the 1980s when we had the structural adjustment programs. And when we had the structural adjustment programs, these led to reduced public spending on areas like health and education. So the International Monetary Organization and the World Bank gave conditions to the government that you have to cut on this, cut on this, cut on that. So the government had to withdraw from very many social services. And in return, it therefore meant that religious institutions had to step in to provide essential services. And the success of these religious institutions was linked greatly to the trust that they have in the community as well as the grassroots networks. And I know for the Catholic Church, because I have been a beneficiary of the Catholic Church, I know that you have something called the small Christian community, which gets to the root of community organization, gets to identify the priorities and also the challenges that the community face and how to address them at that particular grassroots level. In terms of historical evolution of faith-based organizations, we trace this back to the colonial era or the missionary era, where we had missionaries establish schools, hospitals, and also welfare services, right? Some of the earliest African schools and hospitals were established by religious institutions. And I'm also happy to mention that I'm a proud alumni of the St. Mary's School Yala, one of the best around, which is also a religious institution established by the Catholic Church. When we come to post-independence, the government now tried to assert themselves in a way, so they attempted to show that they are providing services, and in a sense they're also trying to now regulate some of these services that are provided by the missionaries. Come in the structural adjustment programs, the church now had to move in as a result of these reforms. So, what has been the contribution of these faith-based organizations? One, in the health sector, we've had mission hospitals, we've had the role of the church in HIV and AIDS interventions, and we also have the role of the missionaries or the faith-based organizations in maternal health services. In terms of education, we've talked about primary and secondary schools established by the faith-based organizations, and also we have religious and vocational education centers established by the faith-based organizations. And ultimately, in terms of peace building, which is very key in terms of development, the faith-based organizations play a critical role in mediation, reconciliation, as well as conflict transformation. Now, in terms of social capital and civic education, we can say that beyond service delivery, faith communities generate social capital. And this social capital is closely linked to the work of Professor Njeri Kinyanjui. Religious networks support people during crisis and economic hardships. They nurture collective responsibility and civic engagement, and these informal systems are often invisible in conventional development frameworks, but they are extremely essential for community survival. So, in as much as we have these successes of the faith-based organizations, we also have some contradictions or critiques. And we can say that faith-based organizations do incredible work, yes, but they also face real challenges. And some of the challenges they face include issues of dependency, where they have to rely on donor funding. And I think one of the presenters, one of the presenters here talked about reliance on donor funding for the education program. Then we also have issues of gender exclusion. Patriarchy still plays a key role, especially in leadership structures, and there's limited women participation even in these faith-based organizations. Then there's the issue of prosperity gospel, where we are told that...
So, Doc, you have 3 minutes.
How many minutes?
3.
3. Okay, right. Yeah. Where you are told that wealth is linked to divine favor, and this leads us to what we call individualization of poverty. And last but certainly not the least, there's political co-option political co-optation, where religious leaders are aligned with political elites. And you've seen this in the past and current leadership wrangles we have in the country. So, this paper draws heavily on Dr. Kinyanjui's solidarity economy framework. And the core principles of this solidarity economy framework are, 1, this is the element of mutual aid. Communities support one another in times of need. Then there's collective responsibility. Yes, this is the shared ownership of challenges as well as solutions in the grassroots. Then there's the element of relational development. That is, development that is rooted in relationships and not just transactions. And lastly, community-centered economies, where we have local resources, local priorities, as well as local control. So in terms of decolonizing development, it requires that we recognize religion as a legitimate source of development knowledge and practice. And in conclusion, therefore, the presentation that I've just made has a central argument that faith-based development is structurally embedded in Africa's political economy. There is therefore need to balance, or need for balanced engagement that recognizes both the strengths and limitations of faith-based organizations that we've just talked about, and we also need to appreciate the importance of endogenous, that is inbuilt, and community-led developmental pathways. Therefore, as I go to sit down, I'm asking all of us, from your own perspectives, how can faith contribute to transformative, inclusive, and decolonized development?